We find out today from the Food Banks Association of Canada that now a record-smashing 25% of Canadians live in poverty. Why is he going ahead with the same wackonomics that caused the poverty in order to solve it?
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox.
Thank you very much for joining us on our first real episode as us. So it's going to be interesting. But before we get into it, we just wanted to thank absolutely everybody for the overwhelming outpouring of support over the last day. It has been surreal, to say the least. From the hundreds and thousands of comments to the donations that have come in, we honestly didn't expect it. We just wanted to put out a video, get some awareness, and the response has...
it's been overwhelming.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of you.
So, we really take that to heart, and it was quite the day, but we're eager to get back to work and do exactly as we said. So... we're in the question period today. We don't know what happened, so let's get into it.
Just common sense conservatives who are saying that the Prime Minister's latest tax hike on small businesses, farmers, home builders, and healthcare is not worth the cost. Now, former Liberal Treasury Board President Scott Bryson says the Prime Minister's support for the tax hike is a combination of moral sanctimony and economic complacency from ministers who simply do what PMO tells them. Right. He calls it socialist bafflegab. Right. Why is the Prime Minister going ahead with killing jobs and raising costs with what his own Liberals call socialist bafflegab?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, despite the Conservative leader's partisan attacks, the raise on capital gains inclusion rates is very simple. If Canadians make more than $250,000 in profit from selling investments in a given year, we're asking them to share a little more of those profits with Canadians who need those investments, whether it's by investing in housing, whether it's standing up for school food programs, whether it's delivering dental care to seniors. These are investments we're making to support Canadians by asking the wealthiest to pay their fair share.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So,
did you hear that? To share?
Share, yeah.
Share.
Sharing is...
That's a socialist word, isn't it?
It's a word you use in kindergarten, is what it is.
That it is.
And you don't use that when it comes to economic policy. Like, come on. So you're telling me that people that earn money, pay tax on that money, use that money to then buy, say, a property, pay tax on that property, pay taxes every year on that property, and then they sell that property and you want to tax them even more than they already are. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And the fact that you have former Liberals saying that just says all you need to know, folks, that, people that actually are not under the thumb of the Prime Minister, they are not willing to kowtow to this horrendous Liberal narrative. It's just, it's so transparent. That's about as transparent as this government is actually going to be, is that they've put out these ridiculous policies that you can see right through.
It's not partisanship for me. It's his own former Liberal Treasury Board president who calls it socialist bafflegab. In fact, the tax begins applying on the very first dollar that a small business earns. And, he's been promising that raising taxes would make life fair. We find out today from the Food Banks Association of Canada that now a record-smashing 25% of Canadians live in poverty after 9 years of his taxes, his deficits, and his doubling housing costs. Why is he going ahead with the same wackonomics that caused the poverty in order to solve it?
25%. The last number that we saw, I believe, was 9.9.
Yeah, but remember that was from 2 years ago because the reporting is always 2 years behind.
Right.
So the report that was released today, and I didn't see the original report yet, but I did see the CTV article, and they said that it was 25% poverty.
So, ladies and gentlemen, recall that when they were, cheering and celebrating, with victory, that they had reduced the poverty level down to 6%. 6%. That was in the middle of COVID, and that was because they gave everybody CERB.
And do you recall what it was under the Conservatives? I think it was like the high teens under Harper, and they were saying that was bad because it is bad.
Yeah, and it was slowly coming down.
Right, but 25%. Oh my goodness.
1 in 4 Canadians live in poverty. Think about that.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition talks about affordability, but he's standing against raising taxes on the wealthiest so we can give more supports to those who actually need it. He's standing against our school food program, which is going to help 400,000 kids across the country have fuller bellies as they study, and take the pressure off about $800 a year for families who are pressed with the cost of groceries. We're continuing to deliver dental care supports to seniors, and as of next week, to young people and Canadians with disabilities. We're there for Canadians. He's voting against it.
It's only Tuesday, and Trudeau already sounds rattled.
He should be. That's a damning statistic. 25% of Canadians are living in poverty.
Well, and his solution is, don't worry, everybody. We'll just do more of what we've been doing, which is spend more money, tax more people, and everything will be more affordable for everybody.
Only a Liberal would think that you can spend your way out of a spending crisis.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It has been 9 years of this Prime Minister promising trickle-down economics, that if he just takes money away from small businesses and workers, it will go from one level of government to another level of government to another level of government. It will trickle down. And now 25% of Canadians are living in poverty, something he tried to cover up, just like he covered up his own data showing $25 billion of extra costs with the carbon tax, nearly $2,000 in carbon tax cover-up for every single family. How can we trust anything he says about taxes, poverty, or money?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
So this is where Trudeau is going to have a problem, because he was trying to use the carbon tax as the one last way to try and scratch away at the lead that the Conservatives have. The issue is that he covered up his parliamentary budget officer's report regarding the carbon tax, and he was trying to figure a way on how to get around this new poverty stat, but he can't. And the thing is that people are seeing with their own eyes what the stats are now reflecting. When you see tent cities literally in every single major city in Canada,
and even the minor ones,
right, and then you see this new statistic come out that there's 25% of Canadians that are in poverty, meaning that justifies every single tent city that you see. So the issue is that this new tax that they're actually using to try and claw away at the Conservatives, it's actually blown up in their face.
The Leader of the Opposition hid for 8 weeks while he was trying to come up with an answer to us, asking the wealthiest to pay their fair share so we could invest in fairness for every generation. I think he needs to go back to the drawing board, because his answer is completely illogical and unfounded. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to delivering for Canadians struggling with food prices, we've got a national school food program that's going to help 400,000 kids that party is voting against, Mr. Speaker. They talk about affordability, but they're actually only interested in themselves and their political advantage.
Let's talk about that school food program for a second. So there's many schools around the country that don't have cafeterias, that only have vending machines. And let's not forget about all of the rural schools out there that don't really have access to Uber Eats or anything like that. So the issue with all of these programs that the government actually puts into place is that they put some initial funding behind it to create more public service jobs, but then They just expect the provinces to find everything else. And there's going to be millions, if not billions of dollars needing to be spent on either cafeterias or putting in infrastructure to actually be able to support this program. So they haven't cost this out at all. And this new program, it's just a bill that says we should have a program. Well, and the other thing that was in that bill is the government gets to decide what your kids eat.
Well, and that was going to be my next point is why would I trust the government to feed my child?
Right? Like, this is the same government that froze bank accounts. It's the same government that has hiked taxes on everybody and made things completely unaffordable.
It's the same government that turned an $80,000 app into a $60 million app.
Yeah.
And we still don't know where all the money went from that.
I think I'll feed my kids myself, Trudeau.
For 3 months, this Prime Minister has known about serious allegations that parliamentarians are knowingly working with foreign governments to undermine our country. Yet we don't know if he's had a single conversation with any member of his caucus. And the Conservative Party leader doesn't even want to know about serious allegations of foreign interference that directly impact their party. Why do both of these leaders put the interests of their party in front of our country?
Well, Jagmeet, you've read that report. Why don't you tell us? Oh, that's right, because reading the report, therefore, puts a muzzle on you, and you can't tell us what's in that report.
Yeah.
Which is why Pierre does not want to read that report.
Right. Because there's literally no point. And here's the thing. The government knows, and Trudeau knows, if there's active parliamentarians that are involved in that report, that are involved with collaborating with foreign states, that are committing treasonous activity, well, guess what? The guy that can do something about it is Justin Trudeau. And he's not. The question you have to ask is, why would that be? It would be in his best interest if a bunch of Conservatives were in that report, right?
One would think, because then he could use it as a political tool against the Conservative Party.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Liberals are down in the polls worse than they have been in a very, very long time. You would think that Trudeau would be begging for some sort of evidence that he could use against his major opponent, the Conservatives, who are just cleaning house. They are expected to win right now over 200 seats. So it really makes you ask the question, why?
Well, and a latest Abacus report came out again, another poll, and they're still down 20 points. So, yeah, this isn't getting better for Trudeau. So if there was a bunch of Conservatives that were implicated, you would think that would be a sledgehammer for him to use. The only reason that we can surmise, and we don't know, but the only reason we can surmise is that there is more than one Liberal that was implicated. We already know of one.
Or like a former Liberal.
Well, Jagmeet, I'm not even sure how he's not arrested for actually saying this in the last press conference, but he confirmed that it was Han Dong. Because in the publicly available report, that wasn't in there. So he actually let that slip, so I'm surprised he's not being arrested. So there was Han Dong, and there may be more. So what is it, Trudeau? You either are hiding Liberals that are in your caucus, or nobody knows what you're doing.
This Liberal NDP Prime Minister is robbing hardworking Canadians to pay for his out-of-control spending. The level of that thievery was exposed last week when the Liberals were forced to admit that their carbon tax scam robs our economy of $30 billion a year, and it picks the pockets of every single Canadian family of $2,000 a year. This environment minister is not worth the economic vandalism he has wrought on Canadians. Will he admit that his carbon tax is a scam and just resign?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, a deception was revealed last week.
It was.
The deception was the fake pose of the Conservatives to pretend to be on the side of working people. And last week we gave them a choice. We said they could be on the side of a nurse or a welder, a Canadian who lives from paycheck to paycheck, or they could side with a multimillionaire. It did not surprise anyone on this side of the House. The Conservatives yet again chose their rich lobbyist friends. Shame on them, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a debacle without Freeland weighing in on this. So notice how she didn't even answer the question. which is not surprising for question period. But the fact that, she didn't even put it the trope about the 8 out of 10 Canadians are getting more money back.
No, because they know that Canadians have figured out that's blatantly false.
Right, and the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report reveals as such. So that's a problem for them. So they can't continue to address that. And then they continue to say, oh, well, the Conservatives, they were screwed last week when they had to speak to the capital gains tax. I'm pretty sure that they absolutely destroyed you when they said, you know what? Let's put your money where your mouth is, Freeland. Put into the law that only the top 99.87%,
yeah, I think.
It was ridiculous.
It was some huge number.
Yeah, I think it's 99.87% of Canadians will be subjected to the capital gains tax law. And that completely destroyed her whole narrative. That was the kryptonite for that alleged sledgehammer they were going to use on the Conservatives, because she couldn't respond to that. And she couldn't respond to that because they need people that are earning way less than those top earners, the people that are actually selling houses and selling cottages and have small businesses. They need that money in order to actually fund this year's budget, which is already expected to go over budget by $10 billion, by the way. So this is what we're dealing with, folks. This is what we're dealing with. So this is going to be the last hurrah of the summer this week. And right now it's the Conservatives 2 and the Liberals 0. And I expect to see zeros all the way through this week. So buckle up, folks. It's going to get bumpy.